You're listening to the Home Staging Show podcast. I'm your host, Cindy Lin. This is a show where we talk about all things real estate, home staging, and selling your home to live and to sell. Welcome back to Season 8. This is Episode 9. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of a home staging show. So on the show today, we have an artist and a creative director of a marketing agency. Darcy Briks is on the show today. And her mother is actually an interior designer and who had done work with builders and investors on selling their homes. So growing up, Darcy had a lot of influence from her mother when it comes to colors. During today's shows, we chatted a lot about the creative process, using colors and how we perceive and are influenced by colors. Because of Darcy's position as a marketing agency's director, we also talk a lot about branding, also how colors are used in branding. And of course, because of her background as an artist, we also talk about how to handle, how to store, how to transport and select artwork for your home or for your projects for staging. Darcy also gave us a few resources on buying artwork online. Darcy was born in Milford, Connecticut and grew up in various suburbs throughout the country before settling down in Fairfield, Connecticut for the remainder of her formative years. This fueled her passion for changing styles and mediums from one series to the next. She studied art and graphic design in a postgraduate program at the Massachusetts College of Art and Design in Boston. Then she continued to explore different mediums, including photography, acrylic painting, and mixed media throughout her 20s. Now, she mainly creates acrylic paintings with a focus on color combinations. Darcy is also creative director of a boutique design and marketing agency called The Second Language Design, which she founded in 2013. After many years in Brooklyn, she now lives in Ardsley, New York, with her husband and 2 young children. So that's it. Let's start the show. Hey Darcy, thank you so much for coming on the show. Before we get started, can you tell us a little bit about your background and tell us a little bit about your work?
Of course. Thank you. And thanks for having me on the show. That's so exciting. So my background, I can start at the way beginning. My mom is an interior designer turned realtor. So a lot of where I landed professionally kind of as a result of that. Professionally, my background started in marketing and went to graphic design where I was a junior art director in Connecticut at an agency where I worked on, Vaseline, Dove, Caress. And then I moved to, I founded a creative department in a PR agency in the city. And then after a few years doing that, as I was heading it up, I founded Second Language, which is my design firm, where we do branding and web design. And somewhere in the mix, I really focused more on making original paintings. And in the last, 2 to 4 years, I just got really prolific in that. So now, professionally, I have my design agency, and kind of on the side, I'm an emerging artist.
That's great. I think that is amazing, though. I think that's the beauty, I think, being in the creative industry, because it's, in a way, it's very fluid. You can take the same skills and translate it into other kinds of work and other kinds of medium.
Yeah, and also I feel like it's important for creatives to keep learning, especially for design. You kind of have to learn, these new programs all the time. And so to have like a physical outlet for that, it kind of teaches you more about graphic design in some way to be painting. It's all related, and I feel like it's all for personal growth and professional growth.
Yeah, I agree with that, because I'm one of those people who do many other different things as well. Because when I was staging, I was doing windows for Ralph Lauren, for Anthropologie. I was freelancing on photo shoots. And I think all that different experience kind of bring it all back to me. And it does actually help in terms of my staging life as well, because everything, in terms of styling and staging, it all comes hand in hand almost.
Yeah, you sound voracious like me. It's like once you get started, you can branch out into other areas, but it kind of all helps bolster what you're doing.
Yeah, and that was really fascinating because you mentioned your mom was an interior designer and then she was selling real estate as well. Does she still do both of that?
Yeah, exactly. So basically, she went to American University. This is obviously a long time ago for interior design, and now she does real estate. But where she does it in Fairfield, Connecticut. Shout out Alice DeZenzo. Um, she she helps builders with their new constructions. So she actually kind of informs the interior design of those and helps stage them to a certain level. So I don't know. I don't know if it helps me have a passion for that. It's kind of like a random passion for just anybody to have, home staging and kind of like the interior design. But definitely I hear her talk about it a lot, and I think it helps with what she does. I mean, definitely it helps with resale value of homes or the value of the home. And it's definitely informed, like, 2 years ago, my husband and I purchased our first home. And always, I mean, I feel like more than 50% of my decisions for how I decorate our home have to do with resale value, even though we're not even planning on selling our home. It's a nice, smart, clean way to, inform how we're decorating our home at the very least. So.
Yeah, and I think because you have a neutral background, and it's probably make the art pop even more, right?
Right, exactly. And it seems safe and clean, like if you start doing multiple colored walls for different rooms, it's like maybe a little overkill, I guess, unless you have a really large house, large canvas, large house. But I think for the average home, like for instance, our whole first floor is a light gray. That's great, because then that means that my accent color could be a chair or a couple chairs, or the art that we have on our walls. And then, a lot of white. I mean, they always say graphic designers tend to decorate their homes in white. I don't know, but I think it's just because, it allows you to freely choose your accent. It's just whatever you find that you love. And
I think that's very fascinating.
Yeah.
So what is your process like as an artist?
So for art, sometimes I get something in my head where it's a certain color combination or certain shapes or marks that I envision, and I feel like I really need to get that idea down. And so, and sometimes it's informed by, a theme, like when I did the Magna series, those were really meditations on a problem, each one of those, and kind of a euphemism on that problem. But others are just informed by color. They're very color driven, color combinations, and certain marks. So if I have that idea, I try to get it down, when it strikes me. And usually I feel like it's not what I meant. I mean, that's often, I don't know if that's for most artists, but for me, it's like as soon as I put it down, maybe the color combination is what I meant, but the shapes aren't. Or, so I feel like I'm always working on revising it after that. Usually each painting, kind of no matter what the size, takes me a few full days total to finish it. So basically I, make marks, I put it down, I don't like it, I photograph it often, and then look at that over the course of a few days or weeks. And then I revisit it another day, and I add more layers to it, more colors. I try to make it more like what I envisioned. And then I photograph that, and I let it sit with me, and then I kind of revisit it, usually like a third time, maybe more. But so that's basically my process. And if I do have a theme in mind, I just try to abstract that theme. I did have a series recently, the Hut Lagoon Pink Lake series, where there's this naturally occurring pink lake in Western Australia on the coast. And that was actually based on aerial footage of this pink lake. But it was mostly because I really liked the shapes and the colors that were just totally naturally occurring. But yeah, so basically that's my process. It differs sometimes, but usually it's like, 2 to 3 full days total per painting, but I revisit them and try to adjust all the time.
I think that's really interesting. Is there a reason why you're photographing your work as you're progressing along?
Yes, I just think that sometimes it's it's kind of large, even if it's not such a large, if it's like a 24 painting, it's large enough where I'm up close to it and I need to just take a step back. So if I view it on my phone, which is basically viewing like a thumbnail of the painting, I usually feel a different way about it, or I gain perspective that way. And I don't know if that's right or wrong, really, because ultimately the actual size painting will be in someone's house. But it does help me think about color play and perspective and size. The shapes that I'm making in different colors. Like if one is taking up too similar space to another, too similar real estate to another one, I want one to be taking up less so that one can be taking up more. Things like that. Yeah.
I think that's really interesting because sometimes when sellers are not really on board with staging, we actually show them what the photographs would look like if their home goes unstaged. And then they get it because it doesn't, because it doesn't come across how it would be like when, like a perfect real estate agent ad is. So.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, totally. I could see that helping sell it in. It's hard to see the big picture, it really is, especially if you're a homeowner. I'm sure it's your home. It's hard to kind of get out of your own way.
Yeah. And so why did you choose painting as your medium?
So I actually started more doing, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Getting over a little cough. I actually started doing various things. I started drawing and painting and doing photography. And I feel like I first gravitated towards photography. Hang on, let me just cough and then I'll come back to this. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Oh my God, it's ripping through my household. Almost through it. Okay. So what was I saying? Oh, so I started doing photography more so than any other medium. And I even had a group show in Connecticut at one point that was with photography. And I did really like it. And I was kind of experimenting with different cameras. Like I was using a Holga, with that vintagey vibe and colors. And then I don't know why. I gravitated more towards painting and I really just went for it. The photography thing was like, I was just over it. And I do like switching mediums. Like I wouldn't be surprised if I switched to a different medium, like drawing eventually. But I don't know, maybe I felt like I had come to the end of that passion for photography, for me doing original photography. And I started painting and I just haven't gotten over it yet. So I'm still most into painting.
And when it comes to selecting pieces, how should we go about selecting the right piece for a home? So is that process different, between choosing a piece for a room or versus for the entire home?
Well, yeah, I would say yes and no. For the whole home, I like to think of as a big picture, which I do think really helps with staging, especially. But, if your theme is mid-century modern, I would think you'd want to kind of integrate that throughout the whole house in some way. Not to say that necessarily affects the art you choose, but maybe. But thinking of the grand theme and thread that goes throughout the whole home. And then I would say, plan each room separately, but at least somewhat tying into that bigger theme. I think different rooms, though, should have a different feeling or a different vibe. So I think the colors you choose, the art you choose for each room should vary based on that. I don't know. I know we're going to talk probably more about color later, but definitely I feel like people choose different art or different colors for the kitchen than maybe a bedroom or a kid's room or something like that.
Yeah, I think you brought a really good point in terms of an overall story, because I have been in homes where you can kind of tell where the previous owner had left off, because, for example, a home might have multiple different architecture elements to it. Maybe the new owner put on an addition, and then even though the house is Mediterranean, and then they want to do something Tuscany. And so it become a really different look and feel. And so I think that's a really good point when it comes to, if you're a homeowner. And I think that's also one of the things I really admire you when you said that you and your husband kind of made the decorating choice based on the resale value. And I think that's probably the influence from your mother as well. But yeah, a lot of times I see a lot of homeowners make very personal choices that make it really difficult for them when it comes to resale. And maybe because they're building their dream home. Yeah, they never thought they were going to move. And so they made these really personal choices, but it was very difficult to reverse later on.
Right, exactly. And if you have, an unlimited budget, then maybe that doesn't hinder you at all. But most people, even if they have a healthy budget for, design, decorating, I think it's not that it's limiting to have an overarching theme for your home. I think it's actually better. And I think when people come over, they probably feel more welcome and more at home because there's kind of, it's like a cleaner total look maybe. And you don't want to confuse people. I mean, I know that's not like maybe what most people are thinking when they're planning out the design of their home, but really I like that my whole first floor is mostly all grays. And then we have one kid's room that's a light blue, but like the whole first floor, the walls are gray. And then we have, white furniture, some natural wood furniture, and then we have art that brings in some color, obviously plants and other accent pieces, but accessories. But yeah, I think that for me, that's a good jumping off point at least.
Yeah, and I think most people don't really think about it unless you work in design, is that when we're putting the room together, there are multiple layers to it. And you kind of just broke it down just now where you have the furniture and you have accessories, you have artwork. And then, with all these different layers, they kind of come together and then build this ambiance, this lifestyle, and this style for what we live in.
Right. And then in terms of choosing actual art for a space. I didn't even realize this until recently, but I tend to do the 2/3 rule. So if you're putting art over a couch, it should take up 2/3 of the space of that couch, or the same over a bed, it should take up 2/3. So when I kind of learned that, I looked around after the fact and realized I was naturally doing that anyway. But basically, if you're choosing art to go over something, it should take up 2/3. So if you really love a piece of art that is less than that, you could consider framing it to increase the size that it takes up, basically. I don't know why it's pleasing to the eye, but that 2/3 rule is kind of something that's pleasing.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. I love you brought that up because I never actually heard about the 2/3 rule. I know in composition and photography, we talk about rule of thirds. So I think that makes sense because
like a grid.
Yeah. Where the focus points are, that's usually where you want to hit. So, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the most important thing is just choosing the art that you love. So if the art that you love, and you want to be in a certain space is slightly smaller than you think it should be, you can just frame it in a certain way. I mean, I know framing costs more, but it's an investment that ends up looking really good, I think.
Yeah, I believe it too. And so in design theory, we talk a lot about harmony, balance, scale, etc. So are any of these concepts at play when you're choosing artwork for the home?
Yeah, for me, probably it comes down to three things mostly. So I would say scale, which I feel is more innate. And I guess, we just talked about the 2/3 rule, but you could also pair things together or choose a triptych or, but I often do like for my kids' rooms, I'll do like a gallery wall, but ultimately that makes up the scale anyway, the total space that it takes up over whatever you're putting it over. And then colors, if you're choosing warmer colors to create a warm vibe or light colors to be kind of more peaceful. And then just personal taste, like whatever art is your favorite art or whatever colors are your favorite. But probably for me, it's like whatever the accent art is in that space, just whatever is your favorite. It's your personal preference. So those are the three things that I think for me are most important.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And so can you talk a little bit about color theory? So how do you go about putting colors together?
Yeah. So let's see. In a lot of my art, I tend to use warmer colors. And then every once in a while, I feel like creating a peaceful piece, which I do through, like mostly white. And then I just intersperse like some blues and greens. But basically, color theory is kind of saying like warms, reds, and oranges signify energy, passion, strength. And people even say circulation, for those reds and oranges. They tend to say like reds or oranges increase appetite, so it's a good color to have as an accent color in the kitchen. They stimulate conversation. Some people like to use like kind of an orange accent in the dining area, and they create a good first impression. And then I was, kind of in preparation for this, I was looking it up, and it seems like Jung had said fiery red, and he kind of labeled each color. So cool blue, earth green, and sunshine yellow. I definitely see that, and I love the idea of sunshine yellow, like a happy yellow, especially for my kids' rooms, things like that. And then cool blue, green colors, those are seen by some as the most popular for some reason. I don't know who said that or judged that, but and they indicate trust, tranquility, wisdom. Green is seen more as like nature, freshness, safety, calm colors. And then you get into like dark versus light. So some people say dark blue and like dark purple signify luxury or creativity. Whereas like light blue is like peaceful, tranquil. Light purple is seen as restful. And then purple in general, and this is something that I learned recently, is the general, like the most preferred color amongst kids. I guess I heard this fact that like 75% of children, if you told them to choose a color, would choose purple, which seems crazy to me, but I love that. I love that all, mostly all kids would choose purple.
I think that's interesting because is that why like Barney and Teletubbies are all purple?
Probably. And I don't know what it is about it, but I definitely have tried to use like certain clients of mine professionally for graphic design projects have come to me saying, I really want this logo to be purple. And I almost always urge them away from it because I really do feel like using purple for branding is like a little dangerous. Like it looks very playful and childlike. And I didn't know that before, but I guess that's why. I don't know. It doesn't seem very corporate.
Yeah, you're right. I think most corporate color is probably blue because I think most of
exactly.
American Express is blue. Gap is blue. I think most of the corporation chooses blue because it signifies this trust factor.
Right,
into
and
it.
green too. Like banks, like TD Bank, green. A lot of banks would choose, or corporations would choose blue and green. They're definitely seen as trustworthy, but also, calm, or they signify wisdom. So that's definitely appropriate for corporations more so.
Yeah, and I think because I was interviewed about using colors in interior for staging, and I really never thought about how I put colors together until I was on that interview because they were asking like, what tertiary color will you use? But for me, I tend to lean toward greens and blues. And I think it's because I want to build a space that put buyers at ease and make them feel welcome and also trustworthy, right? So I think I naturally just lean toward blues and greens in staging.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me. I mean, definitely it seems a little more bold or brash to use like a pop of orange or a pop of pink, I personally love that, but I don't know if I would do that if I were actually staging. Yeah, I guess I might. I mean, it's all about, being sparse with the accent colors, I guess.
Yeah, we do use pops of oranges and reds and yellows as well. It depends on the season. So I usually tweak it. If it's fall, for example, we'll use that kind of like the rusty orange, the deeper red kind of thing. And then for summer and spring, I usually like to use like pop of yellow, like the sunshine yellow you were talking about, because it's like a really pleasant, very spring kind of color, makes people feel better. But I usually use neutral and I layer on blues and gray. I'm sorry, blues and greens as my secondary, the biggest color, and then like these pops of different accent colors.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a big fan of color, obviously. I mean, a lot of my art is like purples, pinks, rusts, and yellows, like especially these recent series, like the Magna series is really more like rust plus white plus pops of yellow or pops of red. I mean, pink. But the other series is a little bit more natural in that it's, more greens, but it's green paired with pink. So and also rust, but I don't know. A lot of people also like to do complementary colors. I was never really overtly a fan of complementary colors. I don't know if maybe I did it somewhere, accidentally, but I just am not like a big, blue plus orange person. I don't know, or like red plus green person. I'm just not, I don't think.
Yeah, I think
that's not to say that you couldn't find it in my house. I don't know. Maybe you could.
No, but I think there are such strong color combinations because combination colors are polar opposite, like red and green. And I think most people, when they see red and green, they think of Christmas, they think of holidays. So
I think so too.
Yeah, like even when you're dressing, like I try, like I don't know why, but for a period, for a period of time, I keep wearing green and purple together. And I wasn't realizing it was like a conscious choice. I just like, oh, this looks good. I just grabbed it and left. And then my friend took a photo of me and I was like, I look like Joker from Batman. And then so I stopped wearing that color combination. Because it was like a purple, like an athletic jacket. It was very comfortable. And it had this green scarf.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, I look like Joker. Oh my God, bold. I'm going to stop wearing this.
Very bold, right?
Yeah, but it makes sense. It works for villains.
I always lean more towards, less towards complementary colors and more towards like a monochromatic color scheme with like, some pops of different colors. But I'm a big fan of, and I was just talking to my mom about this today, actually. She's redoing a room in her house and it's already a light blue. The wall is light blue. And she's talking about repainting the whole room just a slightly deeper, more gray blue. And, this is the way I was raised. I was raised to pay close attention to color. It makes all the difference to her and maybe to most people. If you just tweak that color like a little bit, it changes the whole vibe of the room. Like a light, brighter blue, even though it's light, is still a little more vibrant and energetic than if you made it a gray or blue. She's going for a more peaceful look. It's a guest room. I don't know. And so I always tend to lean towards that as well. I also had an art series that was it was based on crystals, but the original idea that I felt like I had to get out and make, with paintings was monochromatic. So I was doing this malachite painting and the whole point was I just wanted to keep it monochromatic and do different greens. And it's actually currently hanging in my house. So I guess I liked it, but I just, for me, I would sooner choose monochromatic as a scheme with maybe an accent here and there than complementary.
Yeah, I think that's really fascinating. And I love how your mom kind of pushes you in terms of thinking of colors growing up. I think that's really funny.
Yeah, I remember as a young kid, she definitely wouldn't call something like pink. She would call it coral if it was coral, or, mauve, or, you know what I mean? She would always say like the specific color, and I love that.
No, I think that's great because I think it does. You definitely get the parents' influence growing up No, my mom was a dentist, so I don't really have much of artistic influence. But actually, that's not true because my mom was very artistic in her personal life.
There you go.
Like she would make mosaics and all this stuff, and she's very handy. She likes to build stuff for the house, and so she was always
See,
like
so
putting
it really
colors
does
together.
influence you what your parents do.
Yeah, I think so. And then my father was a businessman, and it was kind of natural that I have my own business as well. So I do think parents
Same with
play a
me.
big part.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
We have a lot in common.
Yeah, and I think it's funny because that's what I love about staging because it allows me to be artistic and creative and businessy at the same time. It's like a perfect marriage between the both. And you probably feel the same way because you have a branding company where you are working on the business side of improving people's branding, and then you also are artistic. So
exactly, I feel that way about my creative agency, but now that I'm getting more and more into art, I feel like I can't help but be influenced by these other things, like, and think about how art might look in the end for a space, for somebody's space. Like, you know, I want it to live harmoniously in somebody's space. So I definitely think of these things too. And I have to imagine that not a lot of artists are coming from an interior design, like home staging perspective. It definitely seems like something unique to someone raised by, you know, my type of mom.
No, but I think it's great. And I think it's really fascinating because I think real estate probably has changed so much since your mom being working in the industry.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely it's an asset to her having knowledge of home staging and interior design.
Yeah, I think so as well, especially working on the builder side. And builders very much about, you know, a specific type of buyers they're targeting.
Exactly. Yeah, that varies too. Yep.
So in your experience, do men and women experience colors differently?
Oh my God. I was marinating on this because it's so funny. I was talking about colors for some reason. I don't know why. I think exterior door colors to my husband the other day. And he was basically saying he judges it based on what he would like his drum kit to be colored. Like if it's an acceptable color for his drum kit, he likes it, which is such a random, like, male perspective thing in my opinion, but who knows? Maybe if I were a drummer, I would base it on that. I don't think so. But yeah, I do think men and women see color differently. In my life, I try to not gender color, you know, for anything. I think everybody should use any color that they like. For my husband, I feel like I'm constantly like combating that because for him, pink is like, you know, decidedly female. I don't know. So in my house, I don't even know if he realizes this, but I might have mentioned that most of our art, like most of our accent colors, which is through our art that we have up, are pinks. Like I do have photography by a friend of mine who also is a photojournalist for National Geographic, and the photo is mainly pink. I don't even know if he realizes, but anyway, so he must like it innate, like, you know, subconsciously, but he would never choose pink. Whereas I'm a big fan of warm colors. I think pink is like I don't know. I think it's just a warm color to have in your home as an accent color. But yeah, I think that's the difference. And I think a lot of guys would tend to just choose grays and blues, unless they're maybe more enlightened or more well-versed in design.
I think it's fascinating because I think it also could be cultural because I'm from Taiwan originally, and the men here have no problem wearing pink. And I noticed that on European men as well. Like Italian men, they'll wear it. It's fine. And I remember, I don't know if you used to watch Friends, but there's that episode where Ross wore this shirt that is salmon color, and then Chandler and they kept making fun of him for wearing pink, and he kept going, "It's salmon! It's salmon!"
Yeah.
And I think
it's nuance. Ross is nuance.
Yeah, so it's like I wonder sometimes if it's cultural, but it's also the way people. I mean, it's maybe getting too political, like how people brought up. But
Right.
in my staging career, the husband usually never say anything, and the only time
Oh,
I'll
that's
ever
so
hear
nice
from the
for you.
husband, yeah, no, but the only time I will really hear back from the husband is when we move the television, or we move
Oh
the
my God,
chair that
that's
watches the
hilarious. I
television.
can't wait to tell everyone I know that.
No, but it's weird. It's true. And then I was dating this guy, and then the thing is that like so I was living in Paris and he was living in London. So when I come into Paris, I would stay at different Airbnb, right? And most
Mm.
Airbnb may not have a television, but he's the first comment usually he might just say like, "Oh, that this would be perfect where you put a television, like a big flat screen." And I was just
That's
like,
hilarious.
"What?" Like, like I mean, I don't get it, but it's kind of funny. I was just like, is
That's
this really
so
the
funny. You need to
difference?
date musicians. I think they would talk about where to put the drum kit or the keyboards. But
Is that who your husband is? He's a musician. That's why he's like my drum kit color.
yeah, basically. I mean,
Yeah.
that's not really what he does for a living. I mean, it is related. He's an agent, but that's what he does on the side. He's a drummer, but he also makes music. You know, he has like a studio in our basement where he makes all types of music. But yeah, I don't know if he has ever commented on TVs. I guess that can't be true, but we only have one TV in our house. Well, I guess we have two, but we don't use the other one. So yeah, so we're not as TV centric, and I don't know, but I've never asked him so much about colors unless it's a piece of furniture. Like for art, I just choose the art. I'm not interested in his opinion as much about art. I don't know why. I just think he won't push back, I guess, because normally if I asked him, would you like this accent to be pink? I'm sure that he would say no, but I think that it makes the home feel really warm and welcoming, and it's really throughout our whole house. I don't know if he realizes it or not.
That's so fascinating. And how does your son react to color? Have you noticed?
Yes, so I really make a concerted effort to not gender colors, and we went to the store recently to pick out shoes. I'm a big fan of buying from secondhand because these kids grow so fast and avoiding waste and just reusing. So anyway, but I took him to a store with new shoes. I took him to Nordstrom's and I let him pick out 2 pairs of shoes, and he really was only interested in these purple shoes, these waterproof natives, the kids love these, but he wanted either the sparkly blue, which they didn't have in his size, or the purple. And I bought him the purple ones, and I wanted to buy him a second pair, and he just was not interested. He thought that meant that he couldn't get the purple ones. So, he is totally open to all colors. He tells me all the time he has different favorite colors. I feel like he's learning from others maybe that pink is viewed as a girl color and blue is viewed as a boy color, just based on what he says. But he's still very into purple, and he seems to be into all colors equally, mostly.
I think that's very cool. I always wonder what would be the difference if someone grows up very sensitive to colors, because I found working in creative industry, most creatives have some sort of sensitivity about something. It can be they're very in tune with colors. That's probably why they work in interior design or styling or kind of, or some people are very sensitive to feelings or to senses or something, so
did you ever find that when talking to other interior designers or home stagers that they end up using the same accent colors over and over? Do any just have a preference across the board, or do they really treat each project like it's its own thing and they're gonna choose colors according to that?
I think everyone has a signature. So I noticed that I have a pattern that I tend to choose certain things over and over, or certain texture, certain shape, for example. And I see, if you look at people who have very distinctive style, like Emily Henderson, or Justina Blakely, who does the Jungalow. I mean, their style is very different and it's a signature to them. And it becomes something that they are able to use to differentiate themselves in the marketplace, which I'm a huge fan of.
And I feel like it must happen naturally. Like, I can't help but feel like they're not purposefully branding themselves with a signature. Like, I think it must come naturally to them according to their preferences. Don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's this woman, I really bad with names, but it's like 3 S's. She did Mandy Moore's house. It's Sarah Sherman something.
Samuel.
Yes. I worked on a book where we shoot at her house. And her house that I think she just sold actually in LA. But, that style was very consistent to her. Like, she had a very distinctive, that is her style, the way she DIY everything, and then she picks certain hardware and everything. It's very, very, very in line. I mean, you see every part of her house, like her bathroom, her kitchen. I mean, it's on her blog too, but like her studio, her kids' room, for example, they're all very similar style. And if you look at her client's house, it's the same thing. And so I think everyone does have that signature. I mean, your husband is a musician. It's probably the same. He probably has this, like David Beckham has that signature hook, or, everybody, I think everyone kind of has their signature in their way of doing things.
For a creative who has a design firm, I mean, not interior design by any means, but, doing branding or web design, I feel like I'm not allowed to, like, maybe if my signature is like clean and organized, that's okay. But visually, I cannot have a signature, I don't feel, because I have to really, really treat each project differently. I think it's a little bit different when you're doing graphic design, because you have to really play into a brand's existing branding or create that for them. But either way, it should be really, really in tune with that brand positioning. Each project is different, I feel. So I don't know if I have like a signature. Maybe mine is more vague for the design aspect of my career. And I don't know for art, do I have a signature look? I mean, I definitely think I tend to use warmer colors, but I also use cool colors from time to time. So I don't know, but I could see it for interior designers like Sarah Sherman Samuel.
Yeah,
that's her name, right? Sarah Sherman Samuel.
Yeah, it's 3 S's, and then I don't know, it's so hip. I mean, even their rescue dogs were so cute. Like it just like the whole picture perfect family. It just was like, wow, amazing. Some people do live that dream life, I think. But anyway,
yeah.
But I think it's hard when it's yourself. It's hard to know what your style is, I think.
Yeah.
And for me,
exactly.
For me, I really lean on my intuition because I'm so close to myself. It's difficult for me to pinpoint what my style is. So I just do what I feel intuitively is right. And that's how I approach staging. I actually also work as a photographer as well. And when we just had this conversation, I thought about, because one of the things when I was in photography program, one of the things they really want you to do is for you to come up with a very distinctive style. Because from a hiring perspective, especially you want to work in commercial field, the art buyer, they're really looking for a specific type of style for their specific type of campaign. So they will really hire, like say they want a Richard Avedon look, right? They're going to hire Richard Avedon or someone who can deliver that style. Or Peter Lindbergh. Peter Lindbergh has a very distinctive style. And so if they want a fashion campaign in that style, they will hire Peter Lindbergh. So I think I think about it because you can choose to be a photographer who does everything under the sun. And this comes up in my own client interaction as well. I did a test shoot the other day with a brand, and they were not very specific in terms of what they wanted. And then so when I interpreted the brief, I thought they want me to apply my own style, like how I would edit my photos, for example. And they didn't tell me,
Right.
they didn't tell me they really wanted their own look. And so when I get the feedback back, and then they were like, can you re-edit these photos based on our look and feel for the brand? And I was kind of like, you should have told me this before I start editing.
Right, that wasn't part of the brief.
That wasn't part of the brief.
We rarely have enough info, unless we're working with, giant global brands like Coca-Cola. We rarely have enough info, and we just have to really spell it out for the clients ahead of time to even, vaguely know what it is that they're looking for, or else we're going to make our own recommendations like you did. I mean, you can only do so much without all the info.
Yeah, and I think that comes across in interior as well, because when you're working with clients, they can be very vague because they don't necessarily...
Oh, definitely.
They're not necessarily clear in terms of what they want. Like, I think with staging is a bit more clear cut because we are targeting the buyer, and so we don't have to please the seller. So
right.
The staging itself, the styling of it, it's just really about the buyers. Even if the sellers don't like it, we'll just be like, well, but the buyers would like it, and we're selling it to the buyers.
And a big chunk of it, like, your Marie Kondo episode, a big chunk of it is like cleanup and just being presentable in that way.
Yeah, so exactly.
That's like half the battle.
It is half the battle. And so it just depends on the type of client you have. But I think too, with creative, in terms of communication with clients, it's really important because if we miscommunicate, then we might have to redo the whole project, or there's going to be miscommunication. Right, yeah. And usually money conversation is involved, and it's just unpleasant for everyone.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, people definitely, like you were saying before, have these preferences, and they don't even always know that they have those preferences. So it's just about feeling it out and coming to an agreement on what is basically just a really free-form, natural thing to what is your preference on art and like look and feel of things.
And so when it comes to having artwork in your homes, how should we handle artwork properly? Especially, in staging, we have to move and transport a great amount of it.
Really hard.
And then so how do you recommend what's the proper way to handle, store, and then also just to move it around?
Yeah, this is something that is probably the hardest thing for me. It has to do more with being detail oriented and organizing. But, in general, I would just say if it's a painting or if it's a framed piece, bubble wrap is your friend. Use a lot of bubble wrap and tape it, even if you're just bubble wrapping and taping the corners or edges, just to separate it from another piece or whatever it's touching. If you're storing it or moving it, that's pretty safe. I have a solo show happening in Brooklyn till the end of the month, actually till this Saturday. Shout out Lucas Gallery. And I had to wrap 20 original paintings, and it was a little nerve-wracking. They're obviously, that's it. They're the originals. So I needed to make sure that they didn't get damaged in moving them. I basically just used a lot of bubble wrap, and then you can kind of stack them freely and not really worry too much. So, I would say that's the biggest thing when transporting. Obviously, if you're carrying something that's a canvas, wood and canvas, you don't want to poke the canvas. Just don't touch the, original artwork surface. You hold it by the wood, things like that. And I'm assuming, if you're doing home staging or interior design, that you're probably going to have some original pieces. You can reuse them, and it's nice to have an accent for a new space. So, so that's what I would suggest. If you wrap it in bubble wrap, you don't have to be too careful with it after that. I guess think about it, but it's pretty safe.
That's very cool. And when it comes to buying artwork, what should people know? Like, how should they go about choosing it? We talk about, working based off color and accent, overall room. But what is your top advice on choosing artwork?
I really feel like it's just what you love. I mean, it's obviously also the overarching theme and color scheme of maybe a whole home or space, but ultimately what it comes down to is just what you like. And I guess you probably wouldn't want to choose something that is going to be too dramatic for your day-to-day life. Like probably that you would choose sparingly. If something is like red and blood spattery, like no, probably not. Probably not. That's not what you're going to choose all the time. but yeah, just choosing what you love. You have your own preferences, and it extends to art. And it's like I imagine it's like picking a tattoo. You live with it forever, or as long as you can stand it. And your tastes will change over time, but you want to hope that something you pick that's original art is going to withstand the test of time for your preferences.
And do you have any recommendation on installing artwork? Because I think a lot of people say eye level, for example, but some people are taller, some people are shorter, so it's a different eye level for everyone.
Yeah, totally. I know that between me and my mom, we're different heights, and that differs. The placement, like where we place the art in my house, is actually higher than where she placed the art in her house. So I think you're right. The rule of thumb is eye level, and I guess for whoever is the main person inhabiting that space, that's the eye level that you're using. But yeah, as I mentioned, I also do gallery walls where it's probably 2/3 up the wall and then down from there. But I think it varies.
I think 2/3 is an interesting rule, and I think that's a good guidance as well. Because if you're installing art in the gallery, you probably are not going to go by your own height, are you?
I don't know. I mean, maybe you would look into what the average height of someone is and go from there. I'm not really sure how the gallerist where my art is right now hung it. So she did the installation. The gallery did the installation, and it seems to kind of be eye level to me. I'm 5'8". I don't know how they choose that professionally.
Interesting. I've read that an average woman's height is about 5'4", and then so the 5'4" person's eye level is usually roughly where the art should be hung. That's one thing.
Do they
I've
do
read.
it by women though? I mean, that's my question. It's like, wouldn't you average women and men and then hang it according to that, which would probably be a little higher than that? I don't know.
Yeah, so that's why I like your 2/3 rule, because I think that is more scientific.
Yeah, exactly, right? I mean, yeah, exactly. I don't know. I think it's a good rule of thumb too.
Yeah, no, I really like that 2/3 rule. I'm totally going to steal that now, because I think a lot of times, people are unsure, especially if they're hanging or grouping over, the sofa or on the wall, because it can look very overwhelming, actually. Yeah. So I think it's good to have some sort of guidance, and you can break the rule if you feel like it. So
yeah, and like you said, it kind of applies to photography too, where it's like you envision things as a grid, and you don't want something exactly centered, So putting it slightly off center makes sense.
And this is a reader question. I know it's a bit maybe out of your area of expertise. So do you know any good places for stagers to purchase artwork at a wholesale level?
I don't know if it's exactly wholesale, but I know there's a few sites that I have seen that seem really good for purchasing art. So there's artsy.net, and I feel like that's for high-end originals. And then there's sites like Brika, Brika, and Minted, where you could buy fine art prints. And those are I would say, slightly more curated. I actually applied to Brika at one point, and they were considering me, and then they didn't choose me. So I don't know if it seems curated. And Minted, I think, also does that. And then there's sites like, obviously, Etsy and Society6, where I don't think anyone's really curating it. It's just whoever. And there are fine artists on there. But there's also I think, amateur artists or student artists, or it's everybody. So I would say those are some good sites to maybe look around, but some are more curated than others. And then another place like this, there's a newsletter, Art Slant, and they had featured me kindly in the past several months. So that was nice of them, but they feature like 3 artists at a time. And that's kind of a good way to be tipped off on, individuals selling art, in a way. And it's like in a regular way. I think it's a weekly newsletter, and they'll, show you 3 chosen artists at a time. And then you can buy art directly from the artist, which of course is like every artist's main goal, I assume.
Yeah. Because I know there's stagers who will go to artist studio, for example, and then they will look for the type of art they need. Because it used to be, it's very easy to source canvas art. Those stagers do because it's light and it's easy to transport, and they're not as finicky as, the frame art where you have glass to deal with. So people really do prefer canvas. And yeah, I know stagers where they would just go to artist studio and quote unquote order in bulk, basically. To
there
get what
is another site that I almost forgot, and they do commercial placements. So I guess it would be kind of like at a wholesale level, and it's called Alpha A, Alpha apostrophe A, like the site is Alpha A. And I'm actually considering doing that as well. So that site, it's alphaainc.com. And that seems to be a good place too, because their whole point is doing it at a large scale so that you could just easily, if you're a home stager or an interior designer, or for instance, a hotel or a chain of hotels, you could go on their site, and just order, and you can choose your framing type. You can choose if you want art to be printed on canvas, and it's all editions. So it's really a way of buying fine art on a larger scale. So that's also, the only thing is I'm just unclear still if I'm going to sign up for that, because I'm unclear on how they protect the actual artist. These companies, it's like they make it very easy for maybe the home stager or the hotel chain to kind of, mass produce art prints, fine art prints, or art on canvas, like you said. But I just don't know if they're saying they get full rights. It's actually something I was just about to talk to my friend who's a paper engineer artist, Matthew Schlein. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he's really amazing. He does, it's not origami. It's not like folding. It's like a kind of a geometric 3-dimensional paper engineered art thing. I don't know how to describe it. It's often like white on what, it's just white. And then he started doing colored paper, but you'll have to look him up, Matthew Schlein. Anyway, he knows a little bit more about these things because he's worked on like more of a commercial level in some ways.
Yeah. Licensing is really tricky. So there's actually this story floating around. I think I read it on Pixel. I don't remember, but it was this guy. He basically, there's a lot of stock photography site. You can submit your photos to be used however you want, and you get a cut from it. So basically,
that
apparently
similar to Alpha.
Yeah, so apparently Walmart bought this guy's photo. So he was paid, I think, $1 or something like that for the photo.
Whoa.
And then one day he went to Walmart and he saw his photo printed on t-shirts, like beach towels, like calendar. It's like every photographer's worst nightmare, right?
Right.
And he doesn't get any cut from it because from the licensing agreement he signed, he basically because he got paid.
So that's the danger. So that's why I'm saying like certain sites, it seems like they protect the artist more than other sites. So I would just say like be mindful of that. I mean, you don't want to screw over artists. That's the saddest thing.
Yeah, but I think the ones you mentioned, Minted, for example, I actually freelanced for them during holidays one year because they're based in San Francisco, and then they need people to actually prove all the greeting cards people sent in.
Yeah,
I think they treat their artists pretty fair. It's also kind of a contest it's not like you submit it, you will get it. Like they actually vote on it. So it's kind of an interesting model.
I should look into that. I mean, I haven't looked into many of these other sites because I sell original art through my own website. But I should. I mean, I would love to look into, you know, how to sell my art at scale and sell prints. But you know, I feel like in many ways I'm just getting started in that area. So I'll have to look into it.
Yeah. I'll keep me posted. I'm interested to find out.
Yeah, I will. Thanks.
Cool. So we are coming to the end of our show, and there's one last question for you. So what is the number one tip you give to someone for selecting the right piece of art for their home or to design the space?
I mean, I really, really feel like when I look at my own passion or innate choices in choosing art for their space, for my space, I just feel like it's all about my personal preference and what strikes me. So it's whatever you love. I really believe that. And I feel that way, in that I don't like to explain too thoroughly, like what made me paint a certain thing, or because I don't want my opinion to affect how someone else views the art and how it makes them feel. I feel that same way about choosing art. You know, you should just choose what you love, and then you'll love it for a long time.
That's great. So thank you so much to be on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I loved it. Thank you.
So that's it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to help and support the show, there are 3 ways to do so. You can leave a review and rating on iTunes. You can share the show on social media, or you can donate to support the maintaining costs for the podcast. You can make a donation through the show notes or on the sidebar of our site. If you haven't left a review on iTunes, please do so. This will help us grow the show and book more guests. If you have any questions, feedback, and suggestions, you can comment on the show notes. You can also find the show notes by going to stagemore.com/podcast. That's it. Have a fantastic week and happy staging.